loss. I'm Hilda Crawford, and I'm a 65-year-old woman who's lost 225 plus pounds in the last 3.5 years. I created my YouTube channel in order to encourage others like myself who either had a very large amount of weight to lose or had some serious health issues that they need to overcome. I want them to see my journey. I want them to see my struggles. I want them to see my accomplishments. I want them to believe that it's totally possible. It's totally and completely possible to regain our health, or at least vastly improve it, and to lose the weight. Tonight I want to talk to you about possible triggers. 2 nights ago I talked about triggers and coping mechanisms, but tonight I want to talk about things that may have started those triggers in the first place. In my book by the same name, Journey to Health and Weight Loss, I briefly addressed the fact that when I was 9 years old, my mother and father lost twins, and when they were, at birth, and the changes in our family dynamics at that time. And I'd also had surgery on my left eye that year, so I was having to leave school for medical treatments. I was having to go to the nurse twice a day and have goopy stuff put in my eye, and I was having to wear an eye mask, and it resulted in a lot of teasing. And then the loss of the twins resulted in just a huge family dynamic change. My mother being severely depressed, my father being very sad, and as well. And over the next 3 years, between 9 and 12, I gained a lot of weight. And I don't know, it could have been from the antibiotics, being in the hospital, the stress of the hospital, the family dynamic change, stress, who knows, getting close to puberty. I don't know what caused it, but I do know I started gaining a lot of weight. And when I was 12, or just before I turned 12, or maybe right as I turned 12, my father's mother, who lived in Midland, we lived in Denver, had me come spend the summer with her. She knew how to get this weight back off of me. And what she did was she put me on a very low calorie, low fat, 0 carb diet for the summer. It's just very lean hamburger meat, boiled eggs. She did have me eating prunes, every evening, and skim milk. She might let me have like bran flakes once in a while, vitamins, and laxatives. So that was pretty much my diet. I think she did buy me diet sodas once in a while, but it just so happened that my brother and sister and my cousins were there that summer too. She had her hands full with a bunch of kids. I was the oldest. But they got ice cream cones and cookies and Lucky Charms and Trix cereal, all these sweet things. And their meals consisted of more like macaroni and cheese and hot dogs and fried chicken. And I felt very isolated, and I felt very deprived and just picked on. In addition to that, they'd be out in the backyard playing on the swings or teeter-totter or slides or whatever, and I'd have to be out in the driveway doing these weird exercises, calisthenics, and getting on my hands and knees and using this roller thing to stretch out. And and again, I just felt bullied, is what I felt. And it was so emotional and so stressful, okay? I'm just trying to relate that. But I'm not kidding here when I tell you this. I was a year into this journey, so 2.5 years ago, before I realized exactly how much my grandmother had to give up in order to do this for me, okay? She had to spend money she didn't have on these special foods. She had to spend time out in the bright Texas hot sun in the summertime with me watching my exercises. She was doing this from a place of love, okay? And I realized that. But it took me 60 years or 50 years to realize that. But it caused me to have a binge eating disorder on the wrong foods. Guess what they were? Cookies and cereals and sweets and Pop-Tarts and the ice cream, the things that I was deprived of. And it also caused me to have a hiding food or eating in private. I would look like I was the pinnacle of dieting and eating properly in front of most people. But when I was by myself or behind closed doors or in the car, I would binge and I would eat the wrong foods, all the wrong foods. I was never what you'd call a really big volume eater, but I would always go to the wrong foods, and that started when I was 12. And the reason I'm mentioning this to you tonight is because the sooner you can examine what may have started some of your triggers and realize them and maybe turn them over and look at the other side, like I was finally able to do, and see that this came from a place of love, and turn this around. And a lot of the binge and a lot of the cravings and a lot of the bad choices and the reasons I was making those bad choices went away. I'm not saying that they're not there at all. I mean, we all have our favorite foods and our comfort foods, but it did make dealing with those so much easier. So if you have something in your past that you might need to address, now's the time to take stock of that. Take a good look at it. Turn it all over, look at it from all directions, and see if you can't find a kernel of truth or a kernel of love or a something to make it positive for yourself. I also want to share one other traumatic experience. In my book, I also mentioned that before the year between my sophomore and junior year, I spent the year doing Atkins in the summer and babysitting, and I lost a lot of weight that summer. But and I haven't shared this with many people, the very last week of my babysitting, the very last day of my babysitting, I still had 2 weeks to go, but the little girl that I was babysitting, her grandfather came in, and he was always in and out. It was no big deal. They lived with him, and so, we'd talk once in a while. It was no big deal. But this man grabbed me, and he forced French kissed me, and I don't know what else he was going to do, but his granddaughter walked in. Thank God. Perfect timing, and stopped it. But then, to add insult to injury, her daughter, her mother, the woman I worked for, fired me when she, the next morning she drove up and told me that I just didn't need to come back, and didn't give me any reason, gave me the last of my money, and called it quits. But I mean, and that just heaped more blame. Somehow I felt like this was my fault, that I caused this somehow, and of course I didn't. I was 15 years old. This man was 60-something, who knows, I don't know. And I don't think I ever even told my parents, either one of them, because I was embarrassed, and somehow I blame myself for this. But immediately after that summer, and having worked so hard and lost that weight and been so happy, thinking I was starting my junior year with such high hopes, I started gaining the weight again. I'm sure I was sabotaging myself. I'd like to tell you that I could turn that around and find something positive from it, but I can't. I'm just telling you that sometimes trauma will cause us to self-sabotage, and we just have to, maybe talking about this tonight will make a big difference for me. I don't know, because like I said, it was a big secret for me for a lot of years. It's just something I didn't share with people. And that's as far as it went. The man just kissed me, but it was a forced kiss, and it was a kiss that I didn't want, and it was an unacceptable kiss. So anyway, I'm glad I shared it, and I hope it helps me. I hope it helps you. If you have enjoyed my video tonight, I would appreciate it if you would hit the like button, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel if my content is helping you. In my show notes below, you will find a link to my book, Journey to Health and Weight Loss. It's in paperback format and on Kindle in Amazon. You'll also find a link to a support group that I love, the Keto Mindset, on Facebook. I would love to see you there. and you'll find a link to Dr. Annette Bosworth, DrBoz's YouTube channel, because her content helped me more than anything else over the last 3.5 years to lose a great majority of the weight I needed to lose and get on the right track to improve my health. And anyway, I'm glad you joined me tonight. Be blessed, and I'll see you again soon.